Hey everyone, Spicy Toast Gaming here. Hope you're having a great day. Hope this video can make it a little bit better for you. Today we're going to be doing a how-to guide on how to draft in Path of Champions. Now this will be pretty applicable for a lot of different card games, but obviously we're focused on Path of Champions, and drafting is just referring to adding cards to your deck. Now for Path of Champions, we have a little bit of a different system since we can't choose our starting deck, which is set with those cards, but as you're going through the adventure, you're going to be forced to pick up some cards. So when you win a battle, you're going to get 3 different cards you can select, or when you see different shops in the world or other little events, there's plenty of opportunities to add cards to your deck. And drafting is one of the most important selections for any card game, but especially Path of Champions. It doesn't matter if you play your cards absolutely perfectly. If you didn't draft your deck successfully, you're going to have a much harder time. So we're going to be going through and trying to break down everything you need to know when you're going through an adventure so you can make the best decisions possible to improve your deck and have the best chances of winning. Now, if you enjoy all of our daily content, and especially if you want to see more how-to guides like this for other aspects of Path of Champions, definitely give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment down below if you want to see more videos like this. But let's get into it. So this video is mainly going to be giving you the questions you should be asking yourself anytime you see a possible card selection. And these are just all the questions I'm always thinking to myself anytime I see a card. And the first question is, am I even going to play this card? And then that question can actually be broken down into a couple different sub questions. For one, am I ever going to have the mana to play this card? So whatever champion you're playing, however long games are going, you might just never get to the point in the game where you're actually getting the mana to play this card. And so if you're offered a card that's like 6 or 7 mana, especially for a unit, sometimes with spells, you'll be able to get there because of the extra 3 spell mana, but especially for units, if it's like a pretty expensive card, and you just know that your matches are generally never getting to the point where you can even play that, then you probably don't want to pick up that card. Now, this doesn't mean you should never pick up these cards, and we'll get into why a little bit later, but generally, if you're never getting to the point of the game where you can actually spend the mana for this, then you probably don't want to pick it up. Another question to ask yourself is, even if I did get to the point where I could physically play this card, actually had the mana to do it, would I want to spend the large amount of mana to play this card? Or would I rather spend the mana to play multiple smaller cards? Now again, for some champions like Elder Dragon or Volibear, you want to dump a large amount of mana to drop a very big unit, and so that can be fine. But for many decks, you often would rather play several of your cheaper cards than spend all of your mana on a single card. So even if you could have the mana to play it, sometimes you're going to ask yourself, would I want to choose this over multiple other cards? And then tying in with that, it's just the fact of, do I want to choose this card over other cards I have in my deck? So even if it's a card that's not that expensive, you could easily play it. Is it even going to be worth playing at all? And just try to normally ask yourself, if I see this card in my opening hand, am I going to immediately try to roll it away? Or if I draw this card, am I actually going to be happy to see this card? Or would I rather draw on something else? These are all just very important questions for you to be asking yourself and trying to think through and consider as you're going through. And another big question that's kind of tied in with some of the other ones, but how impactful is this card going to be to play? And so this is kind of the one caveat that even if there's a very expensive card and you're probably never going to get to the point in the game where you can play it, if the card was powerful enough to potentially just swing the entire match in your favor, you still might want to consider it. Because there might be a situation where maybe you don't draw your champion, or you just have really bad draw with a lot of other cards. And so even if you're probably never going to get to the point where you can play this card, if you ever do get to that point, this card will potentially save you. So just try to think to yourself, how impactful is this card going to be if I ever actually play it? So just because you're probably never going to get to the point of playing a card, if it's a super impactful card, you might still want to pick it up. Now, another question to consider when you're looking at these cards, think to yourself, does this mitigate any of my deck's current weaknesses, or does this maybe counter some of the current adventure's strengths? So for some decks, they really don't have a lot of ways to either draw extra cards or create more cards for themselves, such as like a invoke or manifest, and they just run out of things to play. So if you're playing that type of champion, picking up a card that has a lot of draw, or again, these invokes, manifest, anything to generate more cards for you could be really worth picking up. Or maybe you're playing a deck that has very little removal, and so seeing a card that helps mitigate that weakness by giving you a strong removal spell might be something worth considering. all decks in the game have different strengths and weaknesses, and so as you're going through, yes, you're wanting to pick up cards that already complement your playstyle, but you're really wanting to also grab cards that are just going to mitigate any weaknesses your deck really has. And so that's one of the top things to look for anytime you're looking at the cards being offered to you. And then again, really looking to see if any of the cards are going to counter some of the modifiers of the adventure you're going in. So for some adventures, they're going to have a boss that might hit the board very soon, could really cause problems for you, such as like Zoe in the Galio adventure. And so that's going to be a situation that in that first part of the adventure, you're going to be looking for some removal to immediately either outright kill Zoe or capture her or just get her off the board. So it kind of doesn't matter what deck you're playing. If you're playing a deck that isn't able to get Zoe off the board right away, you need to try to find some way to shut her down. Or another example would be in the new Fiddlesticks adventure. Fiddlesticks will mill your deck. So if you can see anything with like Grifter's deck on it to shuffle more cards back in your deck, again, it doesn't really matter who you're playing. That's just going to be a card that is very good to counter the specific adventure you're in, and so you probably want to go ahead and pick that up. And then the last major question you really want to be asking yourself is this card already in my deck? If it is, then there's a high likelihood you want to pick it up for one of two reasons. Either one, it's a good card, you want to get more copies of it, or you want to get an extra item on it. So that is fantastic, making your deck very consistent by maybe not having many different types of cards, but having a good amount of those cards so you know exactly where you're going to be playing every single game. But it could be an absolute terrible card that you already have in your deck. But if it's a card you already plan on cutting, by adding more copies of it to your deck, it means that when you cut that card, you're then getting rid of more cards. So instead of having a terrible card in your deck you already plan on cutting, and then adding another card to your deck, you can just get more copies of that terrible card, and the next time you get to a healer or an opportunity to cut it, you can then get rid of all of those all at once, and it just helps your deck be much more refined or consistent. Now, I know this was a lot of information, but these are just some of the questions you want to be asking yourself anytime you're looking at any cards in game before you add them to your deck, and really starting to practice getting good at drafting will greatly help the consistency of your games, and is one of the most important skills to master in order to improve in this game and card games generally. All right, I hope this helped you out. If it did, throwing the video a like or subscribe is greatly appreciated. Also, if you have any tips for drafting as well, anything that maybe I missed, definitely put that in the comments down below. I would love for this video in the comment section to be just the best place for people to go to learn everything they need for drafting. All right, that's it from me. I hope you all have a great day. Merry Christmas, happy holidays, and I'll see you in the next one.